Oh, now we're live again. There we go. Huh, everybody? I was prepping this podcast. We were troubleshooting with Mr. Paul Hendrick in the background. He's going to join us for a legendary Leaf announcer is going to join us for the show today. We're going to chat with him in just a couple seconds. I was prepping for this whole thing, and I was getting really fucking stressed out, Lachlan, and I'll tell you why. Because as I'm prepping, we haven't done a live show for like a week, maybe even longer, because you flaked a few times like you did today, going to yoga. You couldn't make it on time. So anyway, I'm like, okay, I just got to record shows. We've been recording shows. They've been well received. Everything's great. Our fucking comment section prior to going on was like, I think he's going to be starting. I'm pretty sure he's late. We're supposed to start at 3.
I'm sorry.
This comment section? No, it's not your fault. I just fucking love these people. They're just incredible human beings sitting there waiting for us to get started.
Yeah.
Deadline
it's my fault. This one is my fault. Because I told Dean, I said, I want to go to yoga because I accidentally pulled my own toenail off and I couldn't actually do yoga last week. And so it's been like a week without a class. So I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then just before yoga, I had movement and I had to do my fit test. And it was a good one. Like people that have had to do this, right?
Well, you got to check your plumbing, right? You're talking about you had to take a sample in when you get over the age of 50, which you are well over the age of 50. You want to make sure you're practicing good plumbing health, right?
Yeah. Well, I do an annual checkup, and so they make that part of the fit test. And the first year, I decided to do my own version of the fit test, which was shit on a paper plate, wrap it up, put it into a Safeway bag, and take it down. They don't like that. Yeah. They don't need that much, apparently.
You didn't do that.
They don't need a pound.
You didn't do it.
They want that. They want it more contained.
You're a mess. You're a mess. You made us late for the podcast. We have a guest on who is in Madrid, Spain, waiting to talk about the NHL trade deadline, which comes around once a day. And you wanted to, not only are you 35 minutes late, you wanted to take the first couple of minutes to talk about your colonoscopy exam. Is that correct? That's
fit
what you
test.
wanted to do? Fit?
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. That's awesome. Glad you're back. Please welcome.
I would, if you do that though, like they're going to send you home to redo it. So don't do it on a paper plate, wrap it up, put it in a Safeway bag.
Well, good for you for practicing good men's health. I think it's a great thing that you're telling people to be responsible, go in every year. I'm not going to waste any more of Paul Hendrick's time. Please welcome legendary Leafs announcer, Mr. Paul Hendrick, ladies and gentlemen.
Old Henny.
Henny, sorry about the start to the show.
Hey, we're in arrears already. So
yeah.
I like starting at the bottom, if you know what I'm saying, Paul.
Exactly.
Anyway, nice to see you.
Hey,
what's that?
Thank you. My assets aren't frozen here in Spain, but I know if you're anywhere near Southern Ontario, they're going to be this weekend, so I'm glad I'm not there.
Yeah, no, let's get to that trade deadline day. You're here to talk about it. It's over. It was a bust, as they usually always are. The last 3 weeks have been trade deadline day, if you ask me. We'll get to that. We'll get to your predictions. I'm really grateful that you're here. But you're joining us from Madrid, Spain.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why would you say yes to doing this when you're in Madrid,
it's like 10
Spain?
o'clock at night there, right?
It's ridiculous.
It's 5 to 10. You're right about that. I'll tell you what's ridiculous is screaming Toronto Maple Leaf hockey when they're on a West Coast road trip and watching games that drop the puck at 3 a.m. That's ridiculous. It's literally an all-nighter. And I can't wait till they get back to the Eastern time zone and play, a 107 start. That'll be the case in Vancouver on Saturday night. So it's much more doable, but you don't want to miss any of the games. You don't want to miss anything with this hockey team because they're just so damn exciting to watch. And it's something we haven't been able to say for a while. Well, the last couple of years have been good. But this is a team with a legitimate shot, although Boston's the prohibitive favorite. They are in a tier all by themselves. But last time I checked, they don't hand out the Stanley Cup in March. So you got to keep going.
Well, you bring up a good point, Paul. And first of all, huge marks for you actually giving a shit about the team enough still to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you love it that much. And I want to touch on that in a second.
Your
But you
wife
bring up-
must just love traveling with you.
Yeah.
Does she get pissed off that you do these things with us? And is she upset that you wake up at 3 a.m. and go, honey, I'll be right back. I'm just going to go watch a 3-hour hockey game in the middle
She
of the
just
night.
looked. He just looked. He just took a little sideways look at her.
Right over there. She's in the other room. No, she realizes it's a part of the fragment of, the weave, the interwoven weave of the quilt that is I. I grew up cheering for the team. I grew up in Hendrick, Quebec. I was 10 years old when they won in 1967. Got to meet Dave Keelan. 2 weeks later, my sister's best friend, well, Dave is her uncle. And you never forget this stuff. I'm 66 right now, and you haven't forgotten the vibe. At least I haven't internally of what that is like. And, we've had a couple of cracks at it. 99 was close. 02 was really close. And that team in 03-04 season, Pat Quinn thought, hands down, they had a crack at that. And it didn't happen. Jeremy Roenick beat Belfort, and then there was that drought. We had the lockout year in 2013 in Boston, Game 7, May 13th. But that's been it. And then a bunch of first-round losses. So we'll see what happens this time around. But they're built for the long haul. If they can get there, then great. But there's no guarantees.
Yeah, go ahead, Luck.
Paul, were you? You're the only one I've met that actually remembers a cup win in Toronto. So, and I just wondered, how did you travel to the arena? Was it horse and buggy?
It was. It was Skidoo. It was Skidoo up in Miranda, Quebec. Oh, man.
What did you have to start your vehicle by turning a thing in the front of it? Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I don't think that's a shot at your age, Paul. I think that's a shot at the Leafs being as futile as they have been. And you talk about 2002, and I remember that trade deadline. It's trade deadline day today. Paul Hendrick joins us. I remember that trade deadline. Do you remember that? It was like Owen Nolan was on that team, boom, and then you got Phil Housley, and boom, and then all of a sudden Brian Leach, boom.
I remember
Doug
that.
Gilmour, boom. First shift in Calgary, tears his ACL, boom.
Yeah.
And it was just this disappointment. But in terms of excitement, like pure excitement itself, this is the most exciting the trade deadline has been for the Toronto Maple Leafs in a long time, because these are very tangible, real players. Ryan O'Reilly, the 6 new players. They just made another trade this afternoon. Nobody, just an AHL guy. But like, as far as expectations go, you point out, this is as good a team, as playoff built a team, as committed a team as you've seen at the trade deadline. The time horizon is now. The real unfortunate part for the Toronto Maple Leafs and their fan base, the same time horizon exists for the Boston Bruins, who are head and shoulders better than the Toronto Maple Leafs and any other team in the NHL. And then you got the New Jersey Devils, went out and splashed with Timo Meier, and they're probably the best upstart team in the league. And then you got to get through. The East is going to be a slog, if you will. And I kind of feel bad for Leaf Nation a little bit, even though I don't mind the misery, because it's also funny. But I kind of feel bad. It's like your time horizons now. Well, guess what? There are 4 other teams that feel the same way, that did a ton of work at the trade deadline too, Paul.
Yeah, Dean and Locke. Here's my view. I think there are 8 teams with a legitimate chance to win the Stanley Cup, and then the rest of the group is going to be disappointed beyond that. But I think Boston, in no order here, but we'll start with Boston, Toronto, Carolina, New Jersey, the Rangers, Tampa, and out west, I see Colorado and Dallas. That's the top tier. The second tier, Winnipeg, Edmonton, Minnesota, Los Angeles, and then after that, it would be a major upset. But for the hockey fans out in Edmonton, I think they did well on this deadline, but I think they're legit tier 2 top contender to win the cup. But the other teams I mentioned, there's Boston that's in a league of its own, and then the other 7 teams in behind it. And we'll see. They play the games for a reason. There's a lot written. Social media is just, you talk about a slog. And, everybody reminding us from everywhere that the Leafs haven't won a first-round series in the last 6 years. Well, it's a new run on it this time around. They've got 4 elite players up front, and they've got skill and sandpaper that is balanced all the way through the lineup with the addition, of Noel Acciari and of course Jake McCabe and Ryan O'Reilly, and we'll just see where it's at. But they've got enough depth to make it go. Whether it's going to be good enough, it might not be, but. Kyle Dubas had to do something. I know his contract is done the end of June, but he'd have done this whether he was starting a 10-year contract or contract running out. I think his mode of attack would have been identical to what we've seen the last couple of weeks.
I want to go to Lachlan. Hang on,
Henny,
I want to go to Lachlan in just a second, but to just kind of put a cap on what you just said, Henny, is that don't ever tell me the threat of losing your job doesn't motivate you to do a really good job, right?
Yeah. Well, and that was what I was going to ask. You don't think that Dubas is sitting there in that chair every day going, I got to do something. I got to get them past the first round or I'm done, because that's what this smelt like to me. And I'm not a Leafs fan, but that I've actually been saying this more so to troll Leaf fans than anything. And I'd like you to weigh in on this. I think he might have tinkered too much. Is there a concern that he might have messed with this team too much and actually hurt it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great argument. I mean, 30% of the roster's been turned over, but they've got 7 weeks. I tweeted the other day that this is merely going to be a training camp for the postseason, and they've got a 7-week training camp, and normal training camps are a month. So I think they've got more than enough time to figure it out. There likely will be injuries between now and then, but it's the Mandarin buffet for head coach Sheldon Keefe in terms of what he's going to do. Now, do you want to make it too complicated? No. But if you're going to go deep, you needed a bigger, stronger, more depth blue line than what they had. And you also needed some scoring balance, which Ryan O'Reilly brought back in. That dropped a few players down to the bottom six, and now you've got balance throughout the entire lineup. And you've got guys like Noel Acciari, 4 hits in Calgary last night, and somebody who brings a presence, and they're going to need it against that big Tampa team. The Bruins have paved the way as to what the standard is, and because of that, teams in the East have responded with the arms race that they've done, and credit Boston for that. But that's just the way it is, and you're right. We're going to be there's going to be some disappointed hockey teams when the first round is over, but it's going to be incredible drama.
Yeah, good point. Go ahead, Locke. Go ahead.
You know what? The interesting thing for me looking at the East is who the Leafs will play in the first round, and just looking at how it could all pan out, Henny. Is there a team that you like? Because there's an outside chance that the Sens could squeak in and take that last spot, which would throw a wrench into this whole Eastern, and
they've been on fire too down the stretch, and then they picked up Chikrin a couple of days. Soundly.
But you know what's tough? They're going to have to scratch and claw their entire way to get to the end of the season and probably secure that playoff spot in the last weekend and then get ready for the first round. It's exhausting. I know the Leafs have been in that position before, and you get to that first round and you've got not much left in the tank. That said, it would be exciting for Ottawa. Buffalo's thinking the same thing as well. Meanwhile, back in the Metropolitan Division, you've got the Islanders, you've got Pittsburgh scratching and clawing as well.
Yeah.
You like to work your way in there, competitively, but as comfortable as possible. And I think if Ottawa is to get there, and they've got a really good hockey team, and I'm a big fan of their head coach. And he came via Toronto. I can't say enough about him, about DJ. But it's going to be tough to get that point. In every game from here on into the end of the season, Locke, is going to be a game 7. That's really hard. That's hard mentally, it's physically. Whereas teams like Boston and Toronto at least they're battling for home ice. Both they and Tampa have outstanding home records. And it didn't make a difference last year, except it was a 2-1 hockey game. And the difference between Tampa and Toronto was razor thin. So getting that home ice advantage, I think, is important if you can utilize it. But to get back to your question, teams like Ottawa, teams like Buffalo can make it really, really interesting. But just given how long it's been to get back to the dance for these teams, there's still another step, a Hillary step that has to be taken for these franchises. And it might be too much to be that effective in the opening round.
I love that you used a Mount Everest reference in the middle of that, because it is. It's been 6 years in a row, and Locke and I like to laugh about it. He likes to tease people about it. He's been trolling Leaf fans for the past week.
I'm going to bet on it.
He's going to put a prop bet together. They're out in the first round, game 7. But I mean, let's just quickly kind of go over some of these moves that they made. I laughed because I was watching both trade tracker shows today.
Hold on, are we going to talk about the Leafs the whole time here?
Probably. No, but probably. No, we're going to get to the Oilers in just a second, but no, we're not. But I found some of the moves interesting, and I'll tell you why. Because the Toronto Maple Leafs did major surgery at the trade deadline, and it started with Ryan O'Reilly, Noel Acciari for whatever, right? And brilliant move, good stuff. Biggest trade until Tarasenko and Kane.
That's a great trade.
Huge trade. And then they did a little more surgery here where they picked up Eric Gustafsson for Rasmus Sandin, which is everybody's kind of like, Pierre Engvall, career third, fourth liner for a third-round pick. That was a salary dump. And Luke Schenn is back. Now, Luke Schenn in a Leaf uniform last night, even though he was kind of here for a few years, which is a cup of coffee, the NHL things didn't pan out, made me very happy. And all I've heard from people, and you know these guys, you've interviewed them all, is how good of a human being he is. And then you go to some of the other trades that they made, and it seems like they traded not just for what they needed, but character guys. Ryan O'Reilly, character guy, good human being. You've talked to these guys. Can you speak to how important character is to Dubas and to the Maple Leafs and to Brendan Shanahan a little bit? Because these weren't wild swings, right? They went out and got good quality character individuals. Jake McCabe, another dude that they picked up who played a hell of a game last night in Chicago. I don't know if you saw how physical he was, stepping up into the play a couple of times. Sam Lafferty, who was terrific. Gustafsson, who had a bit of a brain fart to start the game, but he finished actually really strong. He's a great skater. But, all of these things combined, these guys all are great NHL hockey players, but speak to the quality of character, because that room seems to be very important to Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, does it not?
Well, it does. And that is so important with what these guys are trying to accomplish. We also, I know a third of the roster's changed over, but if you're that core four and you're thinking, oh my God, we've got these guys coming in, we've got these guys coming in, it means a lot to their confidence as well, knowing that management believes in what they are capable of doing. But getting back to the quality, I mean, I know who these guys are. I've interviewed all of them at some point in my career, with the exception of Lafferty. Luke Schenn, I've known since he's been 18 years of age, right from the combine to the draft in Ottawa and onward. Just a quality guy. And look, I'll throw this out there. If it was Luke Schenn hitting Yamamoto the other night, do you see Nuge going after Luke as he did Justin Hall?
No. No, I have a Luke Schenn question, because I remember Leaf fans were really
question on the show. By the way, this is the very first Luke Schenn question ever asked.
But I remember Leaf fans were pretty hard on him. Were they not?
Yeah. He was the savior. Yeah, he was the savior. But he was on a team. Jeff Finger himself. He was on a team. We've always got hope in this town, but we've never really had a legitimate roster.
Sorry, I started laughing when you mentioned Jeff Finger. It's one of my all-time favorite Leaf signings. This guy in the world. It was one of those ones where it happened and you're like, who did this?
There was a recommendation from a colleague of Cliff's out west who saw him in the playoffs when he played for Anaheim and said this would be a good signing. And I forget what it was, 3 years at $3.5 million. 4 years at $3.5 million. And Jeff's a good guy, decent defenseman, but you don't invest that kind of money. But they were Toronto's top pairing, essentially, right? Just shows you where Toronto was at the time. They had a few veterans. They weren't sure whether they were in a rebuild or a reset. But let's face it wasn't a very good hockey team. And Luke, while he was here, made it as a teenager. A year later, he's traded. Made it as a teenager at age 18, and then Morgan Riley makes it as a 19-year-old. So two very talented guys to make the NHL as teens, let alone to make it in Toronto and handle the pressure that goes on with that on a day-to-day basis. I've told the story before about Luke, and we had him on a broadcast. I may have even told it on our broadcast previously. I'm not sure, but the Leafs have lost 7 straight games. They're playing Florida on a Monday night, an anticlimactic night always in Toronto after a game on Saturday. Luke's on the ice, the opening 30 seconds, Florida scores. He's on the ice the last minute of the first period, Florida scores again. Leafs are down 2-0. He's booked to be my first period interview, and it's 2-3 questions, and then boom, done. And Mark Askin, our producer, said, if he blows you off, I'll just roll to video, scoreboard, go to commercial. We'll be right back. I said, he will not blow me off. So Luke comes right over. And, I've got credibility, or at least trying to maintain some sense of it, and Luke as well. And I said to Luke, what has happened has happened. How do you and your teammates go about resolving things over the course of the next 40 minutes to get a win here tonight against a good Florida team? And Luke goes, what happened out there on the ice is on me. I've got to go into my dressing room and I've got to apologize to each and every one of my teammates. He just owned it. And I think Luke was like 20 years of age at this time. He's a good Western Canadian boy, Saskatoon suburb, Arundel. Just a tremendous family. Rita and Jeff's son. He's got his brother. He's got his two sisters. They're solid Canadiana. And Luke is going to bring that kind of quality and character. He's a better fighter now than he was when he was a rookie. I remember Bob McGill talking to him after an exhibition game in London where I forget who it was for the Flyers. He had him down and let up, and what's his name came, I can't even remember, and started hammering Luke again. Well, Bob grabbed Luke by the scruff after the game and said, when you've got him down, you don't stop punching until he asks you to stop punching. And Jenner now, I've seen him the way he's a bona fide tough guy. He only played 10:42 against Calgary. They're only going to need him for that kind of time. But what it did, it brought Justin Hall's minutes down below 20. It brought everybody else down with that third pairing eating about 10 minutes. And normally a Toronto third pairing is about 6 to 7 minutes. So I think it's good all the way around. And to get back to your comment, Dean, there's a ton of character here. There's a ton of accountability. Whether it's going to be enough to win that first round, I'm not sure, but it's going to be a hell of a first round.
Lachlan Cross.
Henny, did you watch the game? Obviously, the Leafs Oilers the other night. That was Matthias Ekholm's first. Here we go. First game with the Oilers, yeah. And I watched, and I don't want to get too excited because this is a team that still needs. It's got McDavid. It's got Draisaitl. We have a similar issue that the Leafs have, right? Where we've got some great pieces, but we haven't got a complete team just yet. And I think Oiler fans, if pressed, would probably, to a man, all admit that, right? But the one thing that and again, like I said, I don't want to get too wound up about this team, but Matthias Ekholm did something in his first game with the Oilers. And I don't know if you noticed it. Have you watched enough Oilers to understand? Because I couldn't articulate it. Was it just a calmness that he brought? Because I don't know, he slowed the game down for Edmonton or something. I don't know. Maybe you had have a better idea of what his contribution was in his first game.
Yeah, I just think everybody's bigger because of him. First of all, he's a big guy. Second of all, he's been around a long time. I had to do some research, but he's played in 65 playoff games, including a Stanley Cup final. I think he's going to settle some things down there. And here's the beauty about the Edmonton Oilers and how difficult it's been given their goaltending from time to time. They've got a chance to win the West. Valuable experience last year going as far as they have. You've got a Colorado team that I still think is the favorite to win it out of the West this year, but they're vulnerable given their injury situation. I love the acquisition of Ekholm. I think Nick Bjugstad is another big body and another quality character person. Both these guys
6'6".
Yeah, it was a sneaky trade yesterday, wasn't it? Yeah. That just kind of came across the ticker. Bjugstad and Dineen for nothing, really, right? I mean, it's nice.
He can play wing, he can play center. Dean, he's versatile. You can put him all over the map. That may be enough in the West this year to get things done. The West isn't what it was when the Kings and the Canucks were at their peak and the Blackhawks. That has shifted. The pendulum shifted to the East. But the East, meanwhile, is going to bash itself over the head for 3 rounds to declare a nominee. And then out of the West, it's going to be difficult, but not nearly as difficult. And my only concern for Edmonton is their goaltending situation. Is it Stuart Skinner, who has no NHL playoff experience, or are you going with Jack Campbell, who's had a really rough year? Jack at least does have some playoff experience, and maybe it's time that he's able, at least internally between his ears, get things ready and set the tone for that hockey club, because I think they've got a chance to win the Western Conference.
There's a guy that plays for the Oilers too, number 97. That's not that bad. He's pretty good. Seems to be on. Seems to put it into another gear this year, which scares the shit out of me. And I watched that Leaf game, and it was the Leafs haven't been waxed like that all year, like where it like resoundingly looked like the worst team on the ice. And Edmonton scared me the other night. Now, listen, I know it's plug and play, a road trip where they're testing out matchups. Calgary was just a hilarious joke. They were just running like 3-4 lines the whole time, mixing and matching guys up and down the lineup, different pairings and stuff. So to walk out of there with a 2-1 win.
Game to Calgary.
Well, I know. I mean, that goal wasn't called back. Yeah, absolutely. But my point is this: is that like it is in the East. To your point, in the East, it's a dog's breakfast because it's literally a gauntlet, right? In the West, you've got a couple of top-tier teams, but then I think Edmonton, because of what they did at the trade deadline, if they can get some goaltending, man, oh man, they are a legitimate Stanley Cup threat after the trade deadline specifically. Like, and that's what I'm trying to get at is who won, like who are the big winners this year? Who did enough to change their fortunes other than the Leafs and the Oilers? Or is it just them? Boston made some incredible moves at the trade deadline. Bertuzzi, who I love him.
What a great pull.
You know, Orlov. Yeah. But who do you like? Who had a great trade deadline for the past 3 weeks?
Well, let's be honest. Leafs had a great deadline. I mean, we've not seen anything like that in a long time. Boston only had to do so much because they're really good this year. Toronto is either at or near the top in terms of man games lost. Boston, nowhere near that. I know they started the year without Marchand. They started the year, who else am I missing? Oh, McAvoy. But since then, it's been pretty good. Now they've got Foligno out maybe till the end of the season, Hall out maybe till the end of the season. But they've built up enough house money capital to weather that and just continue through. Plus, they're just a damn fine hockey team. Rangers, I thought, did a great job as well. I'm just trying to think beyond that. Some teams I know they could have done maybe more, but I like what Boston, I like what the Rangers have done. I like what Toronto has done. I know Ken Holland is kind of handcuffed. You know, when you give a 5-year, $25 million contract to Jack Campbell, like that's a lot of cap space. They didn't have a lot of room in which to move, but I like what he did with what he had and what they were able to bring in. So I don't know. The Leafs did very well. Whether it's going to be enough, we'll have to wait and see. But it's as good as they could have got to give themselves a chance to win in the opening round. And you know what? Tampa Bay found a way to get stronger as well. Like, I mean, old Mrs. Hubbard opening up the cupboard. There wasn't much up there.
No.
But Julian Brisbois found a way to get something. The window with this group is tightening up, and they've got a chance to get back to a Stanley Cup as well. We're not talking much about Tampa, but they've got another chance to go deep. So it's going to be great.
It is. I'm excited. I'm really excited because it's legitimate this year for the first time in 21 years. Can we talk about the Arizona Coyotes for a second?
Yeah.
The old Desert Dogs. Yeah.
I knew I'd get that one through me head.
Hey, what's going on with Max Domi? Like, why is he playing for a different team every year? Like, what? Like
6 teams in 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He got traded to Dallas too. Let's get to Max Domi in just a second. Before I do want to get to Arizona first, because can I ask you, is this the NHL's singular money laundering franchise? Is that what's going on here? Because they have 58% of their salary is all LTI. Guys that aren't going to play or will never play for the team, and they're at the floor. So they basically are icing a salary that's 42% below, not even, 42% below the floor of the actual salary cap. And on top of it, it's a yearly event. It's a yearly event. Is this not like an embarrassment for the NHL at this point? Like, like they don't have a hope to build an arena. They're playing out of a university barn right now that holds like 4,000, 5,000 people. And they're like, don't worry about it. I'm actually going there next week. I was supposed to be there this week. I pushed it off, going there next week. And we're going to go to a couple of games. I'm going to Mullet Arena, and I'm embarrassed. Like I want to see the quality of fans that go.
You want to see a game down there. You don't
totally
be embarrassed.
No, I'm embarrassed for the people going, hey, this is the NHL. This is great. I'm like, actually, it's not. the NHL. But what do you make of what Arizona is doing to the NHL? Because I can't stop wondering why they exist.
Yeah, well, they always beat the Maple Leafs. So whatever they're doing, it's pretty good. Leafs can't beat them. They're home. I mean, historically, I think back to Shane Doan and, just the epitome of a pro that he is. And I know still associated with this hockey club. I'll be honest, Locke and Dean, I'd love to see this Arizona team out of the desert and into the cold tundra of the Videotron Arena in Quebec City, which is a premier major league facility, and they should have, and those hockey fans should have a team, and why not Arizona, and just try to balance things out. But no, it's disappointing. Bill Armstrong, the general manager, I mean, I remember he was captain of the Hamilton Steelhawks, and we generated enough to get the Memorial Cup to come to Hamilton in 1990, 1991. I forget what it was. And Hamilton had such a horrendous team that we gave up that right, but not the opportunity to host the championships. And Billy ended up going to the Oshawa Generals. Oshawa and Kitchener played each other to an 8-game playoff series in the OHL final, met in the Memorial Cup final. We set all sorts of attendance records because of it, and Bill Armstrong scored the winning goal in overtime to give the Oshawa Generals, with Eric Lindros and all of that, the Memorial Cup. But getting back to what he's got down there, when does it start to turn the other way? I mean, all these draft picks don't mean a thing. I mean, Jacob Chikrin, there's a guy you draft, there's a guy you develop, and then when he's good enough, you send him to Ottawa. It's not sending the right message. It's disappointing, really.
Well, why is it happening? And why does it keep happening every year? Like, I laughed this year. I don't know if you read that story about the NHL sending, like, all the top tier NHL teams, like Toronto got a letter, New York all the teams got a letter. And the letter basically said, hey, don't pull any long-term injury reserve shenanigans for cap space this year, you crazy people, or we're going to find you and penalize you. And I'm like, have you watched Arizona? Are you aware of the Arizona Coyotes? It's their business plan, right?
Yeah.
Like, legitimately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what they do. No, I've seen 2 games, both against the Maple Leafs, and Toronto lost them both. So I don't care to watch them. It's one of Max Domi's teams too. Just a note about Max. My son played with him in Port Credit in paperweight hockey, and Max was just an absolute superstar. And he's a tremendous guy. My daughter's really good friends with his oldest sister. They went to Western together. I've known Ty and Leanne, Ty's ex-wife, for a long, long time. And they're just good people, as is Max. And, his contract was running out. What was he, like $3 million? And I'd like to see him get a bit of a long-term deal, much like a Nick Paul, because I think he's a quality player. He's a quality person. And but again, he's going. But you know what? He's got a chance to win a Stanley Cup. He's going to one of those teams that I've got in my top 8 to contend for the championship.
Yep.
Yeah, Dallas, and to come out of the West, a winner. I still think Colorado's the team to beat. But Dallas will certainly be there as well.
Interesting with Colorado, too, because Cale Makar has a head injury, and he's out. And I don't know about you. I hope he's okay. I really do. You never want to. He's such a good young player, and apparently just a wonderful young man. But, it definitely puts a dent in their because, I mean, he was the McDavid killer last year in the playoffs, right? Like, I mean, he was the neutralizing factor of the best player in the NHL and gave it just
because he can keep up with him.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He can skate side by side.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what his prognosis is, but it's going to be fascinating. Paul, I really appreciate you doing this. I know it's late in Madrid. I'm going to get ready to let you go here. Do you have an updated Stanley Cup favorites list? I know you gave us your 8 teams, but give me your Stanley Cup final. And you can be a homer if you want. You're a Leaf guy.
Yeah, no. Listen, legitimately, if I'm to bet with my head and not my heart, it's got to be Boston out of the East. And you know what? Maybe Winnipeg. Winnipeg might be the dark horse.
Really?
Would I ever? I love their goaltending. It would be fantastic. It would be. And maybe Canada with a chance to finally win a Stanley Cup. But I think it's Boston's to lose, and then you've got a bunch of teams right in behind it. And Toronto's got a chance. They're in a position and have a chance. But Boston right now, until they say differently, is the team to beat in the entire league, and maybe Winnipeg, my dark horse to come out of the Western Conference.
Leafs get out of the first round?
Yes.
Oh, you're going to lose me some money, Henny.
Will that be good enough? There's a question.
Yeah.
Will the first round be good? Will the first round be good enough to save one Kyle Dubas's gig?
Well, it'll be the first time since the early 2000s, so it better be good enough.
And you know what, Dean, he'll be snapped up in a moment.
I know.
I think, 115-point season last year. We're going to be 100 plus this time around. Why do you fire people like that? I know the fans are very impatient. They have a right to be impatient, but Kyle Dubas has done a hell of a job.
Yeah.
Hell of a job.
Yeah, he really has. He's taken some big swings. He's gotten away with it for the last couple of years, but this year he, for whatever reason, he delivered. But again, he goes to speak to the kind of individual he is. He set this team up with a couple contracts that go past his own contract, right? Like, and that's what I loved about what he did with McCabe and Lafferty. They both had term left. He was able to get it done, not take away from his roster, and make good on a promise of trying to figure it out. Like really try to figure out what it was that he hasn't been able to do over the past few years, the team that he needs to assemble with some grit that's playoff ready, and he's done that. He's addressed it. And you know what? I love the way Joseph Wall played last night. And yeah. I got a real sneaky Patrick Waugh kind of Jake Ottinger feeling around Joseph Wall heading into the playoffs. I think he's going to go on a run the last 20 games. I think we're going to see some miraculous goaltending, and I think the Leafs are going to make the Stanley Cup final. Now, am I being a homer and not using my brain? 100%. 100%. And I'm not ashamed to say it.
It doesn't make you a bad guy.
No, other things do. But appreciate you being here, Paul.
Thank you.
Henny, it was really good seeing you.
Thank you, Mark, as well. And enjoying the Twitter feed daily. And I don't know what to say. Keep fighting the fight, I guess.
Well, that's what we try to do here. Paul Hendrick, please give my friend Paul a follow at Henny Tweets. Legendary announcer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is in Madrid, Spain for a couple of months, as one does when he's 66 and he's fought the good fight. He's decamping with his lovely wife, who, by the way, a saint for letting you do this. So please hang her for us as well.
Muchas gracias and hasta luego, gentlemen.
Hasta luego, my friend. We'll talk to you soon, Paul. Take care. Paul Hendrick, Henny, the man. He is such a good dude.
That's awesome.
Isn't that great?
I had no idea you were getting Henny for the show today.
Yeah, I got to get him. I'm excited, dude. I was thinking about it today because the Leafs loaded up. I love what the Oilers did. I have no ill will towards you and that beautiful fan base in lovely Alberta. I think it's going to be.
You were an Oilers fan for a lot of years.
I am.
That doesn't go away.
Team. No, it doesn't. I've still got a soft spot.
I grew up in BC, and I've always sort of cheered quietly in Edmonton. It's not a good look to be a Canucks fan. There's a hatred for some teams in Edmonton. Like you don't want to bring up that you're a Flames fan, but you specifically, for whatever reason, and I've tried to figure this out, you do not want to bring up that you're a Canucks fan in this town.
No, there's no way Oilers fans hate Canucks fans more than they hate Flames fans. There's no way.
It's odd.
Is it the Alberta respect thing? It's like, hey, we hate you, but we're in the same province.
People love
dab it up when no one's looking.
Alberta. Yeah, they love the Battle of Alberta, and you can go to a game down in Calgary. You can wear an Oilers jersey. People can wrap their heads around that. There is pure hatred for Canuck fans. I don't know what it is. Yeah,
I don't know what it is either. Maybe it's just because they suck and they suck perennially. Like watching the Canucks flame out, get rid of pieces is almost as funny as watching what's going on in Arizona. And the let's fire Aquilini chants are getting louder and louder and louder. The owner, they hate the owner. They're like, even their own fan base hates that team now.
I don't know what happened in Vancouver with Bruce and all that. Like, I haven't been paying enough attention, and I don't know. The thing that's odd for me with respect to Vancouver is they seem to have been. I don't know if it's a head office thing or if it's because Boston has a head office issue, but they continue to win, right? So I don't know what the deal is in Vancouver, but they can't see, like when they got rid of Trevor Linden, that's when I started to hear that it was a bit of a shit show down there from the organization perspective. But again, like I said, I'm not following it enough.
I am. I'm excited to see what happens.
I'm not following Vancouver enough.
Oh, okay.
To know the ins and outs of what's going on down there, right?
It's perennial disappointment, dude. We got a podcast in our network, the PP1 podcast. Ryan, Hank, Ted Wong, they do a great job. And they cover everything Canucks. And they're at the point where they're like, we just want to see a trade just to see a trade.
Yeah.
We just want to be in the mix. We know we suck. We just want some excitement, and we want to see a couple of trades. And I'm like, that's when you know your franchise is shit, right?
The thing
is when
that's
they're like,
interesting.
Can we have a trade too? For no reason other than we just want to be excited because we haven't had anything exciting to cheer about in the city for like 10 years. And I feel that as a Leaf fan, I feel that at least they've been competitive enough to give us this, hope against hope that they might actually, I don't know, make it deep into the playoffs or maybe into a Stanley Cup final or maybe even win the thing. And there's a legitimate belief that that's happening this year. Not so much in Vancouver. And that has just been this perennial reload disappointment. And so it's just fire sale city. We'll see what happens.
What makes the Canadian landscape interesting is the players they get taxed to the nuts here, right?
Oh yeah.
So they don't make the same kind of money that you do if you're playing for an American franchise. Legit. And that actually has to be part of the pros and cons of coming north of the 49 or the 69 or whatever the hell it is. But what
69 is sexual position. The parallel is you're thinking of is 49th. You just said 69th parallel because you love saying the word 69.
69. Nice. Anyway, so the problem I think is you have to, if you're going to make a decision to come to, if you have any pull as from the perspective of where you're going as a player, which a lot of them, the juicier prospects do, they're not going to put a Canadian team on their list if they stand a chance to make 25% more by going to New York or New Jersey or whatever, right? So
Tampa doesn't have state tax in Tampa. Everybody loves going down to Florida to play.
Yes, right? Exactly, right? So you're making so much more money. And when you're making $4 million a year and then you're making 15, 20, 25% more because of the tax situation, that's a lot of money, right? Like that has to play into your decision to get moved or not. But the thing that makes it interesting this year is that Toronto has always had a pull because of the history of the franchise. So you're going to have players that are like, they might want to go to Toronto to play with the Leafs because that's who they cheered for when they were a kid. They're an Eastern kid. They grew up in Ontario. Now you got an interesting situation in with the Canadian franchises where people are willing to actually consider Edmonton because of McDavid and Draisaitl, right? Like, I mean, we were talking about this with respect to what's his nut from San Jose, the defenseman. He's got
Erik Karlsson.
Karlsson. We were talking about Karlsson, and he's been on a tear on a bad team. And I mean, if he is thinking of stats, he's thinking of personal stats. You gotta, and you know what they'll all say in front of the camera, it's about the wins and about the team and all that. But at the end of the day, these guys they have selfish bones in their bodies. They have egos. And you put Karlsson on a power play with McDavid and Draisaitl. Yeah. Holy shit. Like his point production.
Forward, right? Like he's another forward, and he's like a highly skilled forward that plays defense. I'm
not upset about the Matthias Ekholm. Like I'm not upset about that from an Oilers fan perspective, but I was very interested. That one was too hard to pull off. I think they had to do too much. There wasn't enough money being kept from San Jose. Like they weren't going to take enough money of his or eat enough of his contract to make that work for Ken Holland. And again, like I said, I'm not upset. And you can tell when you see a player when they're behind a camera and they've just been traded, you can see it, body language. You can see it on how they all know what to say. But Matthias Ekholm, I said this the other day when we had Bag Milk on from Oilers Nation on Wednesday, just after it happened. I saw his interview and he was excited to come to Edmonton.
Yeah, he was.
You don't see that often. A lot of players.
That's a fucking great point. Is if you're a fan of a Canadian team, Canadian NHL team, specifically in a couple of different centers. And listen, I'm from Alberta. I love Alberta. It might be some of the most beautiful country. Edmonton's a world-class city that gets a bum rap, even though Brad Marchand was shitting all over Edmonton, Winnipeg, and a couple of other cities in Canada. He's like, I would never go to an all-star game there. If you haven't been to Edmonton, it's a beautiful spot. Cold in the winter, yes, and that's when the game's played. Yes, I get that part.
I like Edmonton.
I don't know one player in this league that if they said, we're going to send you to Edmonton, wouldn't go, I can play with the best player, the most evolved player to ever play the game.
That's the difference now.
Sold.
Yeah.
Right? They got a great head coach. They got a great general manager. I know Ken Holland takes a lot of bullets. You look very tired in his press conference today. They're like, what do you make of Nick Bjugstad? And he's like, we're just happy to make the team better and hope you guys get off my back. And I'm like, yeah.
I like how honest Holland is.
I do too.
The other thing that I think is interesting, and
How
again,
about this? Can I just throw this into the mix before you get into the other thing that's interesting? How fucking great for this podcast is it going to be if it's an Oilers-Leafs Stanley Cup final? Like, how fucking McDavid, Matthews,
I don't even want to say it out loud. Like, touch wood or do something, grab your dick or whatever you're supposed to do. Like that, we shouldn't even be saying that out loud. That would be amazing, though. So I think there's something to be said about, and this is going to sound a little sketch of me, but Daryl Cates he's got some health issues. He has this infection that apparently is like a super infection, and he's been battling this thing for the last couple of years, which I think has taken his, well, whatever it was that led him there, plastic surgery, whatever the case might be.
All right.
He is not as involved daily as I think he used to be. And I think he was messing too much. Like, I think he was, when you hire a team to put together a team, let them do their job. And I'm not sure that was always
he was
the case.
Poking his head in there. He's a little Jerry Jones-ish.
That's
little,
the sense
little
I would
Dallas
get.
Cowboys-ish. Like, kind of,
yes.
What we're doing. Fuck, I'm the owner. I'll do what I want.
Yeah. A call at 10 o'clock after a couple of cocktails in.
Trade
with
for
an
Max
idea.
Domi. He just got traded. Do it anyway. I like him. He's buddies with a friend of mine, and he knows Wayne Gretzky. Trade for him right now.
So I think there might have been a little bit of that, and with him like having to worry about his health, maybe, and spending less time worrying about his hockey team, maybe that has been good for some of the decisions made. Because anyway, I am literally pulling that right out of my ass.
And you do that quite a bit, actually. Like this whole book idea. Like a couple weeks ago, you're like, I'm writing a book, right?
I am writing a book.
No, you're not. You say you're
totally writing a book.
Well, physically, you might have started to write something that you're calling a book.
It's going to happen.
It isn't going to happen, and I'll tell you why. Because you don't know how to write a book. You've done no research into it. You've just decided you're going to do a no-rules book. That's what you told me the other night on the phone. You're like, I'm going to write a book, and I'm like, what's it about? You're like, I haven't gotten there yet.
No, I know it's about communication. Okay, now here's the thing about my book.
Okay.
This is what I told you. You're mixed up.
No, I'm not.
You missed the point. You must have been stoned.
No,
here's the point about the I said to you, I was going to do research on how to write a book.
Okay.
And I was going to get on.
Have you
I was going to get, no, listen to me. Hear me out.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to actually get on the phone and spend some time researching how to write a book. And then I realized that if I did that, I would get caught up in the of trying to learn the process of writing the book, when I was like pretty sure I already have a book in here anyway. So what I did was I did how I handle everything in my life. I never know what I'm doing. I just shit it out and I hope for the best. So that's going to be this book.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is. I've got a prologue.
No, you don't.
I've got a forward. And I'm gonna get to chapters at some point. What more do I fucking need to know?
Do you know what a prologue is?
No, I think it's something about me right at the beginning.
I have one.
Well, you don't have to have one. Why? This is the same thing. You and I have talked about this. Why are all these rules? Why do these rules exist?
What is a prologue? You said you just did a prologue for your new book, which you're writing.
Well, I think it's like kind of an introduction, something that you put at the beginning.
It's an idea that's outlined.
Done.
in the beginning of a book. Yeah. So it's the outline of your idea and it's the explanation. It's the prologue.
And that's exactly what I did.
Okay.
And I did zero research on that. I just completely just yanked that out of my ass as well.
How many words do you have?
I wrote another quick little story last night. I have 800 words so far.
Okay. What are the words about?
Well, again, like I said, I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, but what is the content of those?
Do you want to hear the forward? I let my wife write it.
I do.
So here's part of the reason why I'm actually going to write this book.
By the way, I really want to hear the forward and the prologue unabated. I don't want to say a word. I just want to hear the start of this book that you've written that has no plan, no purpose, no chapters, no outline, no working schedule, no concept. I think it's brilliant. And by the way, no stress at all if you're doing that.
Here's the other thing about the book is that we're calling it a book. I want to start referring to it as a novelle, because novels are shorter from what I've been told. And so there's less stress on me if I start calling it something smaller than something bigger, right? Because I think it's between 15 and 30,000 words or something for a novelle. So I'm sort of aiming for that. Now, no, here's the thing. When I started joking about writing a book, it was to you, and you were like, "You're not writing a book." And then I brought it up with my lovely wife at dinner, and I could tell she had that same look in her eye that you had, like, whatever. But she entertained it.
So let me recap. The novelle you're talking about is the word you're looking for is actually novella, and it's
novella.
Sorry. Shorter book. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Novella. I should fix that because I think I got novelle written down somewhere here in the notes. Okay, anyway. So I said to the lovely wife, we were out for dinner, and I said, I'm going to write a book. And she gave me the sideways look, which I've seen before, which I took to mean, yeah, whatever. Yeah. And then she said, well, she entertains me and she says, what's this book going to be about? And I said, communication. And she goes, well, that's fantastic because you're the worst communicator I know. And I'm like, all right, I'm fucking writing this book.
Now it's a fuck you to your wife. Not only is it a fuck you to me, it's now a fuck you to your wife about communication. Yeah.
Actually, Christopher brought up a good point. I actually have a couple of quick stories. I got a couple of quick stories that'll give you an idea of why I'm wired the way I am.
Read a little bit. Do you have some in front of you? I want to take me on a trip into your new book. That's not edited and about nothing. It has no chapters, outline, or real prologue or forward.
Well, I don't know if have I ever told the story about my grade 3 teacher?
Probably.
Okay. Well, I'll read that part because this is actually, I've told this story. So it's story number 1. And I talk a little bit about that before eventually we're going to get to chapters.
No Not chapters. Yet. Hold it. What do you mean?
Promise
eventually we're getting a chapter.
Yes. But I figured I needed to tell a couple of stories about me. This is going to be a book about me, right?
I hope so. Yeah.
So I needed to tell a couple of stories that give people an idea of why I am the way I am. And this is the story that I chose to start with.
Okay.
And it's called story number 1, why Locker might have a lack of respect for authority. The disintegration of authority figures started early for me. My grade 3 homeroom teacher would cry in the classroom. We'd all be sitting down in our desks and she would have her head down on her desk and she would be crying softly. It wouldn't take long for one of the younger ladies from the classroom to go and get the principal. He would march down the hall, yell at this poor woman, tell her to go home, and proceed to teach the class. He was a cock. He believed in corporal punishment and was still doing it out past the point when he was supposed to. I know this because I had a mouth like a sailor in elementary school, so I got the strap more than a couple of times for telling Warren to go fuck himself at recess. Warren and I hated each other. He was this fat kid, and we fought all the time. This was the year they decided to experiment with a new method of teaching called phonics, which is why I can't fucking spell for the life of me. It goes on. A couple more things happen to me. Why are you laughing so hard?
Because you're fucked.
That's a true story. At least once or twice a week, this fucking woman would be crying. And this is your formative years. This is when you're supposed to learn, right? And she'd just be sitting there crying for no fucking apparent reason. I had no other. Then that was the same year that my mother decided that she was gonna sort my shit out. So she took me to Cub Scouts or Beavers or whatever the fuck it is.
Please tell me that's story number 2.
No, that's still part of this story.
Oh, it's still in story number 1.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. First of all, you snuck the word cock in there early, which was really good. Highly accessible read. And then you called the teacher a fucking idiot, which was incredible as well. And listen, there are no rules. What's that? Mr. Mason was his name?
I can't remember the name of my grade 3 teacher. This was in Blueberry Creek Elementary School, just outside of Castlegar. So
you got a lot of help in the comment section. I'll help edit. Chris is like, I can help you make that. And then Christopher Schmidt, in regards to your book, quote, Jesus Christ, that's brutal. It's so bad that I can't wait to read it. And the fact that you're like not interested in doing like chapters, just stories, and you might get into chapters.
I'm getting into a chapter. The first chapter is called Chapter 1. Why this asshole is writing a book. That's the name of it.
I'm interested. I got to tell you, that wasn't the worst thing I've ever heard someone read.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if you would make fun of me or not.
Yeah, I'm going to, for sure. And I think that's why I was dying laughing. But I mean, yeah, that was me making fun of you. It wasn't like going, this is a brilliant piece of prose.
You know what I started to do? And I don't know if this is the right thing to do or not. But I decided that if I'm going to write this book, I actually have to commit, because I'm not a writer. So I don't know enough about getting started on it, right? But I thought, okay, I'm just going to set 30 minutes on my phone and just hit go and write for 30 minutes. And I'm just going to try to get as much down as I can. Mm-hmm. And then maybe I'll go back. Well, yeah, I will go back and I'll try to actually make sense of something and see if there's like a beginning, a middle, and an end type thing.
You don't want to map out.
I'm going to get somebody to edit it.
You don't want to map out the beginning, middle, and an end before you write the book?
No, that's not the way I work. I've got a basic idea in my head about where I'm going.
It's not the way I work. Thank God you're not like trying your hand at surgery.
I'm a doer.
Guys, it's not the way I work.
Shit.
Yeah, but usually people research it. Like when I started to research building a business and all that stuff, I had to research different parts about business. I couldn't go, no, you know what? I'm not interested in incorporating. We don't do that around here. It was like, well, you have to. Well, it's not how I do it. I'm not interested in paying taxes. Not interested in those things. Yeah, there are certain things you have to do if you want to be successful in different things, and there's information out there available to you if you want to do them. If you want to write a great book, what you'll do is you'll research some of the keys to how to write a great book from people who have written great books. But you, which is one of the things I love, you're the guy that gets the box sent to his house, opens up the thing, looks at the instructions and goes, yeah, fuck this. I'm just going to ham and egg it until I can get it together.
You know why? Because I know myself. I'll spend the next year trying to teach myself how to read a book.
Yeah.
Then I'll get exhausted by the process of it and I'll never get it done.
So you're just going to write
my method will work for me and I'll get it done. And is it going to be the best book in the world? Absolutely not. But it'll be a book and then you guys can all eat my shorts.
You know what? If you write that book, I'll make you a deal.
Okay.
I am going to buy you
Be careful here.
Maybe the best chicken sandwich I've ever seen in my life. It's available in Canada next week. Don't know if you've heard. This is big news. McDonald's is making a chicken Big Mac.
Comes out Tuesday.
Comes out on Tuesday.
Is it going to be in all McDonald's?
Yes, across Canada.
It's not going to be one of those select.
No, this is a big deal. Because as a Big Mac
I want
guy,
one of these.
And as a chicken sandwich guy, like if there's a choice between a Big Mac and a chicken sandwich, I sometimes get FOMO. Like if I get that, will I regret not getting that? You know what I mean? Where you're sitting at a place you order, if I get that, but I kind of want that. Sometimes I'd come away with two. I'd come away with a McChicken, a little habanero sauce. Sometimes I'd come away with like a fucking Big Mac and a McChicken. Doesn't matter. They've combined them both. The secret menu is mainstream, my friend.
Yeah.
The McChicken, the chicken Big Mac coming to McDonald's locations in Canada on the 7th, which is Tuesday. Brand new invention for McDonald's, as similar items have been available in places like the United Kingdom, United States, Egypt, and India, which, by the way, I have an issue with. Somebody was
saying that they've had this before. They've done this in other parts. Like you can get this in the States.
You can. And you've been able to get that there for a long time. And I want to have the chat with the people. And I know some of them good people at McDonald's. McDonald's Canada, wonderful organization, great group of people. I know a few of them. And I will say this. I'm going to have a chat with them about why they held this back up in the Great White North, because this is what I've been waiting for. It is everything a chicken sandwich should have on it. Yeah. If you haven't had Big Mac dressing on a chicken sandwich, you haven't lived. If you haven't put pickles and lettuce on that thing with cheese, you also haven't lived. This is everything a chicken sandwich should be, but you can easily interchange the fried chicken with the beef patties, and you get two totally different sandwiches with really only two different ingredients. Well, actually, one. You're just swapping out the beef. And here's the rub. This is why guys like you can get behind it. You know who invented it? A Canadian. A Canadian chef was tapped for this. Some dude in Toronto. And they're like, 2 years ago, they said, we need you to work on a chicken Big Mac because it's one of those secret menu items, you know, where you can get like the air, land, and sea burger, which is like chicken, fish, and beef. Like you put it in like a quarter pounder thing, and everybody's like, oh, it's a secret menu item. Because they're like, this is such a huge secret menu item, and chicken sandwiches are so great. We need to give people the Big Mac chicken sandwich. And he's like, you got it, brother. And he just fucking whipped it together. It took 2 years to get this thing together. I don't know how.
Which is silly because people have been doing this themselves for a long time.
All the time. But Grant is a brilliant move, and I wanted to say McDonald's deserves a standing O. I love this sandwich move. Love it. Yeah. It's a power sandwich move.
What Grant from the locker room used to do, and he mentioned this morning when he was talking about it, is he used to, and it's a drunk thing, right? Like when they were out too late and they were getting, hungry, they'd go to McDonald's and they would get a Big Mac and a chicken sandwich and jam them together, but he wouldn't take the meat out of, he wouldn't replace the meat. He would just put it all in one and eat that.
Add to it.
So then the other thing a lot of people did was the McGangbang, which is a McDouble and a McChicken, and boom. But that's one you can't just walk up and order from Sarah, right? That's a late night thing, right? You're getting that one if you're going through the drive-through and it's 3:00 in the morning and there isn't, small ears around, right? But I've heard people, you can order a McGangbang.
Yeah, you can. You can, dude. I've ordered the McGangbang at my local McDonald's, which is a hop, skip, and a jump away here, and I've always done it without the boys in the car. Mm-hmm. You can't order when you got kids in the back. You're like, I'll have 4 Happy Meals, boys' toys, and 2 of those, 2 with girls' toys, French fries. What do you want, honey? Apple slices. I want apple slices. And you're like, yeah, some apple slices in each one of them, extra sauce. Is that it? No. Can I also order the McGangbang? It's a little uncomfortable, especially when there's 2 adults in the car. Excuse me? Yeah, the McGangbang.
For some reason,
McDouble, but I've ordered before. And when you order it at McDonald's, if you get someone in the know who's cool with the secret menu, they're like this. Oh, yeah, you can. I know what you're talking about.
Have you ever done the mountain at Arby's? We've done that a couple of times.
No, I've never even eaten at Arby's.
They take every meat in the back and put it on a sandwich and fire it out. It's like $20 or something. Mm-hmm. You should try it. The Meat Mountain. It's great.
I'm not going to try that sandwich.
That is awesome.
No, it's not.
That's a good day.
No, it isn't. Nothing there is good as a good day. No offense. I'm sure you're wonderful people at Arby's.
You're totally wrong about this. So
No,
on
I'm not.
Tuesday, I swear to God, I will be. I don't know what our plans are for a podcast, but I need to work around. I got a funeral to go to, and then I'm going right from that funeral to go to get a McChicken.
Dude.
What? I'm dead serious. I've got this in my calendar. George's funeral, McChicken.
You know, I'm fucking crazy. Is that you're going to a funeral on Tuesday?
We had
and
a
right
listener
after the
die.
funeral, you've got the same. Yeah, I know you did, but you've got two appointments in there for Tuesday. One's a funeral, and the second that funeral's done, in the back of your mind, you're like, "That's when I'll be hightailing it to McDonald's for the chicken Big Mac, just to try it." Two very different events.
George would appreciate it.
George passed away.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, they found him in his condo last week, and we put together a tribute. If you go to the Locker Room YouTube page, you can listen to this guy. He had an unbelievable, very character voice, heavy smoker. Anyway, he is a great guy. We're gonna miss him. He's been sick the last couple of years. I kind of had a feeling that things weren't going well for him, and he had to work in Kitimat. He got a job. He lost his gig here in Edmonton. He was working on the LRT project. And then he lost that. And then there's a bunch of work on pipelines and stuff. So he was an older guy, Red Seal chef that didn't want to work in the kitchen anymore. So he started working out in Kitimat and just doing grunt work, right? But when you're 59, that's how old he was when he passed away. When you're 59, that hard labor is even harder on you. So, so we used to get calls from him like a couple of times a week, and then he started working this project, and the calls were, really slowed down. And we'd invite him out to our events and stuff, and he wouldn't come. He's a bit shy, but so fucking funny on the radio. My God, the things I went through last weekend. I grabbed a cup of coffee. And I sat down on my computer and I just started listening to all these phone calls we used to have with George because I saved them all. I had a folder full of them, and we must have had 100 calls. And I was crying, laughing. This fucking guy was so funny. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry,
Anyway.
dude. I'm sorry.
You know what?
I am.
You know what this is like when you do this business, like radio. You meet you don't even meet them, but these people gravitate towards you for whatever reason.
Right.
And you end up, I don't know, with this, like sort of this stable of nut bars. And he was one of them. We heard from another one this morning, Phil. Phil called to ask about this Big Lebowski thing and Phil's a character too. Crazy Greek guy that lives in an apartment somewhere in Edmonton, down by the Coliseum, I think. And he doesn't have internet, doesn't have it. Like his entertainment is our show. It's the radio. That's all this guy's got. Right. So these cats, they become part of the family. Right.
Well, I think what people that don't work in radio don't understand is that was for a lot of listeners, right, that listen to the radio back when, it wasn't dead tech, no offense. But the relationship between the listener, like real listeners, people that loved what you did, loved your music, that relationship was intimate and still is. And in those relationships, times you guys that can provide really great content, they kind of become part of your show, and that's community, right? And you've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of those guys that you've run through your show have all aged at the same age that you have, and you lose people along the way. Maybe it's through friendships that don't work out, maybe it's death, etc. But when you're the beautiful part of doing that job, specifically radio, for a long period of time, is I don't think people understand how much the guys on the radio value some of those relationships, right?
Yeah,
it makes our jobs easier. We look good. They're contributing, and they're supporting you, right? And so it's validating to a great extent when people are like, I'm a big fan of you, right? And what you do and the company you keep me and the information you give me and the light that you give me during my day and the break that radio or the break that you are for me. And so, it's interesting when those relationships happen, or when, fans of yours come up to you. And I had someone come up to me a while ago. This is just at a grocery store. My parents and I we were big fans of yours. And I'm like, oh, thanks. The guy's like, I'm still a huge fan of yours. I go, not your parents anymore, huh? Like doing one of those, content too salty for your folks. And he's like, lost them both during COVID. And we still talked about, like, all the way through COVID and all the way after you left the Edge. That's all they did. Is we talked about, car rides to school in the morning and how that was my daily routine. And it was part of your deal. You even, they won a contest back in like 2007 or something. And we were really, and I'm like, dude, that's everything to me. Right. And so even though these relationships change and you lose people over time, it's nice to see you grateful for those people, for sure.
Well, I'm struggling right now with an interaction I had with a listener the other day, and this has been just chewing away at my soul here the last couple of days. And you know what's interesting? You mentioned COVID. There was a tone, something changed, and these calls became a lot of my calls with those regular wingnuts. And I use that. I used to call them locker room mutts. A lot of them became very dark. Some of these calls became and I can't play that shit, right? And so, and I'm not good. I'm not a good communicate when you're in a mindset of being entertaining. And you're trying to get something, you're trying to pull something worth playing on the air that fits into the theme of the show, right? And our show's fun. Those calls sometimes became tedious. And I regret some of the exchanges that I've had with these listeners, in that I think they're looking for, with all the mental health issues and the increase in drinking and drug use and things like that over the last couple of years, people all trying to cope. I think some of them were trying to call me for some help. And I was like, I just want you to be fucking entertaining so I can play your call, which is very selfish, right? And I had a moment there the other day where I realized that I gotta rethink that approach with some of these guys. We got this guy that calls on a fairly regular basis, and he's a big drinker. And I don't play his calls very often because he doesn't bring enough to the table, and he has an idea in his head about what he wants to call about, and then he calls, and then he's trying to insert some bit into the show, which doesn't work, right? But he desperately wants to be a part of the show, and I get that, I understand that. But he always jokes about suicide. And I fucking snapped on him the other day. I'm like, we're not doing that anymore. We're not. And I said, I'm not doing that. You don't do that. We're not having a ha-ha moment about suicide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you know what I've noticed? and not to end the note on in the show on a sour note, but I think it's a positive thing. And I think that last week.
No, not the way I handled it. I didn't handle it.
Not the way you handled it, but the self-awareness here and kind of what we're talking about, right? Like, we go hard in the paint against certain individuals, groups, people. So last week we had on the Trudeau heckler, this dude named Fringe Derek. Not sure if you watched it.
I did. I saw some of that. Yeah.
So
good interview, by the way. You did a good job on that one.
So this is the guy that heckled Trudeau, invited him on the show. And he was true to my word, said, I'm not going to edit it, have you on, talk about what your issues are. And within the first 15 minutes, we got the goods, right? The goods were, he was abused as a young child, had a terrible, terrible upbringing, trying to figure it out and put it together, has never done that. Now he's mad at every authority figure on the planet, and it's unconstitutional, and it's an experimental, it's everything. They reach for reasons to justify the anger inside them, but a lot of these people are broken and no fault of their own. Some it is their fault, but some no fault of their own. But the one thing that COVID did that doesn't get enough credit when we talk about, relationships and people, et cetera, et cetera. The one thing that it did that I was like shocked to see is there is this thin line separating people from being mentally unwell and being okay. And COVID and the people that weaponized it, the political institutions, businesses, grifters, they just finished off certain groups of people to the point where it broke them, right? Like it legitimately broke them. And it could be the left, it could be the right. It doesn't matter where it is. People that you hear,
it doesn't matter. We make everything political. Sometimes it isn't.
Nothing
Sometimes
to do with
it's just a scam.
And the only way that people deal with that don't have tools to deal with it in a lot of situations is to retreat and self-medicate, right? Retreat, self-medicate. So a lot of people lost their jobs, got angrier, retreated, got angrier, self-medicated, kept self-medicating. Could be drugs, could be alcohol. And overdoses are an all-time high. Alcohol-related liver disease is 400% over where it was 5 years ago in 2023. Suicides off the charts, overdose death off the charts. And it's something we should all be aware of when we're assessing the person across from us who we disagree with, is that, man, yeah, of course we've got a difference of opinion. And am I pretty solid in how I feel about the way that I should be treating people, how I should be carrying on the science I believe in, the value system that I operate with? Yes, I'm fucking solid. I get it. I love what I think about myself. I love how I feel about myself. I love that how I've responded. I'm proud of myself. I'm grateful for the things that I have in my life. And there are people out there that feel the exact opposite of that were not that person prior to the pandemic, right? So it is, and a lot of those people aren't with us anymore, like your friend. And I'm very, very sorry because some people didn't make it out.
This was a tough lesson for me to learn because I'm the just rub some dirt on, fix it. Like, what's wrong? Like, if there's an issue, just deal with it. What are you doing? Yeah. But I think the work it takes to fix some of these issues that you're dealing with is so daunting and so hard that it's just easier to get up every morning and continue to live the way you're living, right? And I don't think people are aware that they're part of the problem. They think that everything happening externally in their lives is the reason why they feel so miserable and why they got to act out. And I think not all problems, but I think a lot of our issues can be dealt with by just getting up and trying to have a positive outlook on the day. Like instead of getting up and going, this is going to be another miserable fucking day. So this is probably going to happen. You get up and you go, this is going to be a good day. I'm going to make this a good day. Today's going to be a good day. And if you can do that instead of dwelling in what the misery is, you're less of a victim and good things will start happening. I hate to say it. There's other things out there and there's other issues out there that impact people's lives. But I think we can actually fix a lot of problems just by stopping ourselves from being a miserable dick all the time. And again, this is going to sound very hippie of me, but I believe this. I truly fucking believe this. I've believed this my whole life. You put a certain amount of positive energy out there, you're going to get it back. You put a certain amount of negative energy out there, you're going to get that back. And I think that's a start, right? Yeah. Listen, if you've got a drinking problem or you're in a bad work environment or you're a bad marriage, relationship, whatever, all those things can't be fixed by this. But I think that's a good start. And I've said that to so many people. And they just look at me like I am from another planet. Like
choose happiness. Yeah. Someone says choose happiness. But some people out there, and that's the fucking sad part, some people out there they couldn't even imagine beginning. Like it's like taking a handful of dirt from the earth and going, we're excavating this bitch. Like, that's how emotionally corrupt they are by a million different things. So,
Yeah.
there are some people that need, and I tell this to everybody, in the case of your friend, there are some people that need to intercede on other people's behalf. And I think if people are well enough, they have to go to the doctor. You got to go and tell them how you're feeling. You got to literally engage with the healthcare system that is in front of us, even though it's somewhat broken. And it's difficult to find appointments, but like literally the people around you count on you, right? Like what's left in the wake of the death of a 59-year-old friend of yours is chaos for everybody else, right? And questions and answers and that was his path. And I think death is just the next part of life, to be honest with you. But at the same time,
we're not sure what happened with George.
Thing.
I know he was dealing with quite a bit of health problems. I don't think he succumbed to any sort of mental issues, or I don't think it was a drug related. He was a heavy drinker, heavy smoker, and I think it just finally his body caught up with him. And can I tell you a quick story that I need to tell you?
Yeah, but it won't be quick. You and I both.
It will be quick because
By the way, like last week, you and I are coming up with a schedule for podcasts. You're like 60 minutes. You brought up 4 stories since we've tried to clam this thing. I'm just pointing it out.
Okay, well, this one you need to hear.
I'm easy. I'm here.
And I promise. I know we're trying to get out here. I had to go give blood for my annual checkup. So they have, I don't know what do they have Dynalife clinics in Ontario? Yeah. Okay, so that's a Canadian thing. I thought it might be, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so for-profit blood work and where you take your poop and your pee and stuff like that.
Yeah. So a clinic, but not a doctor's office. They do all the medical stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So I made an appointment and I went up and I realized, oh shit. So obviously this is a medical facility, right? I got to wear a mask. And I noticed they had masks right at the counter. So I walked up and I said to the nurse who's kind of looking at me, I said, I didn't bring a mask. I see you have some here. Can I take a mask? She's like, yep, absolutely. So I take the mask, I put it on, and she says, have you made an appointment? I said, yep. My name's Lachlan, She goes, okay, sit in the waiting room. Couple of minutes later, this woman walks in and she is with somebody that the best way of putting it needs full-time care. This guy is somebody that probably doesn't get left by himself very often. Okay? And he's got a mask on.
I love how you approach that from the sensitive angle. Nice. Let's just say he needs full-time care. And he's got a mask on. Continue. Yeah.
I'm trying to be polite. So he's standing there and he's, doing one of these. And she walks up. It's his appointment. Yeah. She's the caretaker or sister, or I don't know what her relationship is. But she walks up and the nurse goes, I'm sorry, ma'am. If you're here, you have to wear a mask. We're a medical facility. And she said, I have a mask exemption card. I swear to God. And that's when I was like, how is this going to go? And you know what? As much as I disagree with her, just put the damn mask on, right? And I know you don't have a mask exemption card. You've got to give this woman some credit for hanging on to that. I mean, we're 3 years into this. She still won't put it on. And the guy she's bringing. Okay, so the woman goes, no, I'm sorry. You're going to have to wear a mask or you have to leave. And so she goes, okay, I'll go wait in the car. She turns to the guy and she literally says, sit down. You're on your own. And she beelined out of there and left this poor guy by himself.
Are you serious?
Yes.
This dude's caregiver.
Yes.
Abated her responsibility of giving care over the idea that she had to wear a mask at a medical clinic?
Absolutely.
For half hour max? Yeah. Is that right? What a time to be alive. What a fucking time to be alive.
I haven't seen a lot of exchanges like that. I know I live in Alberta, but listen, man, I have not seen.
Are you like me when you see that percolate where you're like, I'm going to change my seat direction so I can get a good view of the chaos that's about to unfold?
Well,
here.
I was surprised at how well the nurse handled it. Like the woman or the technician or whatever, she's taking patients in, right, and putting them into the system. And she was like, "No, I'm sorry, ma'am, that doesn't work here. You'll have to leave." No anger, calm. Do you know what I mean? There was
She's
no.
probably seen it like 1,000 times. Like
I
I went to
don't
get
know
some
if
blood
she
work done not
has.
long ago, and they're like, "You got to wear a mask." I'm like, "No problem." Go in, wear a mask, feeling good about it. Guy comes in with a mask down here. Woman's like, "Sir, you got to wear a mask." He's like, "I'm wearing it." She's like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Actually, sir, you're not wearing it." This is like 2 years ago. "Actually, sir,
Yeah.
you're not wearing a mask." And he's like, "Why don't you mind your own business?" And I'm like, "Well, you see all these people in here. It's kind of all of our business. This is pre-vaccination shit, right?"
Yeah.
So I'm like, "It's kind of all of our business, isn't it?" And he's like, "Fuck this place. I'm out of here." And I'm like, "One less person to wait. All right, let's get this pony moving." And there's a little Indian woman about 4 seats away, and she goes like this. "Thank you very much."
Yeah. So my daughter, she, when she was working at Earl's at the beginning of COVID, and they were still kind of open, and there was a mask mandate and all that. She had a line when they would come in, and she'd like, "I'm sorry, I can't serve you. You have to wear a mask." Yeah. And they were like, "It's my freedom. I'm allowed to be here." And she would go, "Actually, it's my freedom not to serve you." That was their line back to them. And they would just go, "What? I don't have to serve you." And they didn't know what to say to her. My daughter, this is tiny little thing.
She's like you though too. She puts up with zero bullshit.
Like, zero. I raised her right in that regard.
Yeah. You did.
Anyway, all right, brother.
Thanks for doing this, dude. Great to see you. As always, sorry it's a Friday. We're gonna catch up again next week. Now, we will have shows next week. However, I will not be in the country. Well, I will for a couple of days.
Did you can a bunch for next week?
Not so much. Yeah, we've got a couple, but we've got a couple of shows that we're going to do for y'all next week, just to keep the ball rolling. And it's just a fucking weird deal. I booked a ticket. It's a true story. My buddy's like, "Let's go on a trip." I'm like, "Okay, how many guys?" He's like, 6 guys. I'm like, "Great. 8 guys now. We've got 8 guys." He's like, "Here are the dates." Gave me the totally wrong dates. Had to book a ticket. Booked it. I'm like, "Hey, this is last week." I'm like, "Hey, are we going to take a fucking limo to the airport together?" And he's like, "That's not till next week." I'm like, "That's not when I booked my tickets for." So anyway, I had to cancel those, rebook. Wasn't going to go anyway. I'm going again, but we'll be here next week. We're gonna have some shows.
Okay.
So. To what extent, I don't know, but we'll be back.
So next week, no live shows.
No live shows next week. No.
All right, McChicken it is on Tuesday.
All right. Good luck. I'll talk to you soon. Lachlan Cross, 957cruisefm.ca. That's where you can find him every weekday morning. He's the host of the Locker Room. Morning show out of Edmonton. It's the #1 rock and roll morning show in the country. Trust me when I tell you that. There's nothing else to listen to in this country if you like rock and roll music and good morning shows. That's your guy, 957cruisefm.ca every single weekday morning. And thanks to Paul Hendrick, legendary Leafs announcer, joining us to talk about your Maple Leafs and trade deadline stuff. It was so good to have him on. Live from Madrid, and thank you to Mrs. Hendrick for allowing him to be here. What a sweetheart you are. Really appreciate that. They're on vacation. He joins us for a couple hours on vacation in Madrid. It was incredible. But also, thank you to our partners and our friends for making this possible. Every single day, we have people that come with us, including our friends at cantorque.com, Canada's finest assembly tool experts. They make rugged, hardworking, beautiful torque wrenches, railroad, mining, nuclear, heavy machinery, torque wrenches that nobody makes, you can't buy, you can't find. They'll do all of it. If there's a custom fabrication that you need and an answer and a solution in that industrial torque tool space, these are your guys. They really are Canadian made. They do work all over the world. Nice to have the best in the world in manufacturing torque wrenches in your backyard if you're in the business. It's what these guys do. So make sure you give these guys a call by going to cantorque.com. Again, cantorque.com. Click on the front page. There's going to be a little thing that sends you all the way to Colin, and there's your answer. If you need a torque wrench that nobody makes in heavy machinery and industries like railroad, nuclear, mining, etc., go to cantorque.com. Check them out today. Hey, you looking for some legal help? Everybody seems to be. Time to time, stuff catches up with you. Maybe you didn't do something. Maybe you did, and you just want to get your life back. Go to kivlaw.ca today. Rob and his incredible group of attorneys are top criminal defense lawyers in Southern Ontario. If you want to go to kivlaw.ca, you can contact them. He's got a little speak to a lawyer now button on the top. Better way to get a hold of Mr. Kivlikin. And my friend Rob, the best way to get a hold of him is to email him, robert@kivlaw.ca. Again, robert@kivlaw.ca. He'll answer your email. Toot sweet. That's what he does. Someone will. And then he'll get you out of trouble and make you feel really good about it, because nobody wants legal issues hanging over their head. And everybody seems to think if you watch a television show, they're a lawyer too. That's not how it works. Get a good lawyer. The best in Southern Ontario, Kivlaw Defense Lawyers. Speak to a lawyer now, kivlaw.ca. And of course, Ed at Ed's Fine Imports. His gets are on us. They can be on you too. You should wear them. Go to edsfineimports.com. Order from Ed his brand new boxer briefs. Been out for 2 years. He's perfected underwear. Absolutely. We wear them every day. You should too. Pouch in the front, boxer briefs, super breathable, very stretchable. They last forever. Like, I mean, forever. Joel in The Last of Us, Pedro Pascal, probably wishes he had a few pairs of this. 20 years into a zombie apocalypse, a fungal zombie apocalypse. That's why you need Gitch. Anyway, go to edsfineimports.com. Gitch 3 is your promo code. You'll send you a free pair when you order 2, 3 or more. I think it's 3 or more. Yeah, it is 3. edsfineimports.com. Have a great day, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, hit like if you like. DeanBlundell.com is done. We are now at crier.co. We are a Crier Media property, and appreciate all of our partners at Crier Media for helping us make this possible as well. Go to crier.co for more information today. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe everywhere you get your fine podcast, YouTube, Dean Blundell Show, Twitch. I believe it's Dean Blundell TV, and anywhere you get your fine podcasts as well. Audio versions, video audio. Have a great day. See you next week-ish. Bye.